Thank you all for joining.
Oh,
Hey,
is it working?
it is. I see you. I see you. Cool. So thank you everyone for kind of tapping in. I know we're still a little bit early, so we'll wait a couple minutes, but welcome. I'm glad to see you guys have all kind of joined us. I'm really excited for this chat with Premika. She is so amazing and has so much knowledge. Did I say it right?
No.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Say it one more time for me.
Premika.
Premika.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, guys. Pardon?
No, I'm just trying to
Get a good angle.
off my head. Ooh.
Perfect. Let's get started because I know we have a lot to go through. So thank you everyone who is joining, everybody who is still joining. Really excited for this conversation. My name is Talisha. I am a member of the Lotus group, who is a group of 3 women who kind of started this program that was all about creating more space for Indo-Caribbean women within the Toronto context. We've existed for about 3 years now, and we really wanted to kind of have these conversations, especially during this time of quarantine and isolation, because we know that a lot of people, including ourselves, are always wanting to learn more about our own cultures. So it's really exciting that we're on our 3rd session. Hopefully not our last. We're still trying to figure out what the other sessions will look like because everybody has been kind of saying that they want more sessions. So throughout this time, if you have idea for other topics that you want us to kind of cover, please drop them in the comment section. But I am so happy to introduce our beautiful speaker today. I have your bio up here for once. I'm really excited to introduce our speaker today. Premika is so involved in her community. There's a lot of work around dance, also does a lot of acting, acrobats, a little bit of like all kinds of artistic things, right? And we're going to be talking today on Tassa music, the origins, and just some background. We met like literally 2 weeks ago.
Something like that.
Yeah, we met like
for a long time because of Lotus and your discussions that you guys had. I think you had the recent live you guys had during something. And that's when I was like, okay, what do I need to do? How do I get involved? You guys are doing something really, really great. You guys are you're validating our identity. So that's huge.
That's amazing. Thank you. Yeah. So we connected like 2 weeks ago because she was, we were just DMing each other on Instagram, and then she was telling me all about like dance, and I was like, oh my God, this information is so valuable. Like there's so many people that I know that would be interested in learning about like these kind of very ancient forms of dance. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background, like how you came to do this work. Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey guys, my name is Premika Leo, and I just want to thank Lotus again for bringing me on to this series. It's a great series. A little bit about myself in terms of dance. My mom was actually one of my first dance teachers, so she had me involved from dance right away, from like the age of 3 on, because she herself is a classically trained dancer from Guyana. She's the only Odissi trained person to come out of South America into North America and teach all these filmy style nagara, chutney, and Odissi. So I incredible that we have women like this, and she's not the only person to do this. I mean, her sister was also another person that was part of this journey as well, and the results of this. So
Yeah. I remember you telling me about your mom and just like her experiences going back to India to be trained, and then like just having somebody with that type of experience, and it was so like insightful to learn that like there were these types of like classical training going on in Guyana. So
yeah, in the 70s, and I think I can only speak from the Guyanese perspective when it comes to dance, but I'm really looking forward to I don't know if there's any Trinidadians watching right now, but I really want to know what their experience with dance is, because they had the carnival culture, whereas we didn't. So the way that dance evolved, Indo-Guyanese women is crazy. It's a huge, huge, long story.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I know that we have a lot to dive into, so I'm just gonna like get us to dive into it. So tell us a little bit about the different forms of dancing that are specific to Indo-Caribbean communities and what their stories are.
Okay, so I'm just going to name off really, really quickly the dance styles, and then I'm going to dive into the major ones, because I know we really want to touch on Tassa dance today. But we have 6 styles, some of which do not exist anymore, but there are ways of recreating them. It's by going to our elders, really and truly. So we have Indo-Udhal, have Nagara dance, classical, which is a really interesting story, and filmy classical, which has nothing to do with classical dance, okay? So all these dance styles, and they're not even, it's so, where do I begin, guys? So we're starting with Tassa dance, right? So Tassa dance isn't really a thing. Nagara dance is the dance you perform to Tassa music. So let's start there. Where did it come from? Well, so one of the dance styles I mentioned was called Indo-Udhal, which was this operatic form of dance drama that only men performed. And it is a trans-migratory dance. It came from India, from this play called Indra Sabha, which was about the court of Indra. And then when we brought it over, we would perform it. Well, I say we, but I mean the men of the time would be trained by an elder who performed this. And then they would perform it at night. They would fast all day, perform all night in these open spaces. So if you had a yajna or if there was a full moon, this is the time that they would perform this style of dance. Now, we didn't have the gungaroos. That's not a Caribbean thing. I know that some of us are always performing with gungaroos. It's not Caribbean. What these men did was that they sewed their bells, any bells they could find, onto their pants. And so that was the style of gungaroo. Now, of course, we also have pile, but we can get back into that a different time. So aside from that, we had something called nagara dance, which is also a style of dance that men had to be trained in. And they would perform this publicly. Now, what happened with nagara dance is that, well, what normally happens in Caribbean culture, we saw these people coming into the manticore spaces, you know, birthing spaces, and it was typically what? Female spaces. These are feminist spaces, highly sexualized spaces as well. And they would take these two styles, Indo-Udhal and Nagara, both male, both transmigratory dances from India. They would take it and perform it in their own way, where it was kind of this weird melange of all these things, and, you know, Bhavai dance and Biraha dance, these precursor dances, and they would perform it, and they would also sexualize upon it, because I believe people also said this was the time and the space for the women to learn about sex education for the very first time in our life, right? This is when Nagara dance had that, like, that whining, that space, that shaking. That's what we added that in, because that is how we taught, right? That's girl, this is how you do it, right? You're gonna but it's like we did that, women did that. And then while being performed, Nagara, Tassa music is playing. Now there's different types of playing the Tassa drum itself, but at this time, Tassa was a style called Nagara. Nagara music, we're doing Nagara dance, and it was called Tassa dancing as a result. Unfortunately, nobody knows how to do those moves anymore. The interesting part of it. There are other styles of dance. Filmy dance. Where did filmy dance come from? Do you guys know Bollywood? Does that even sound nostalgic? Filmy, like we use filmy music, filmy dance, and that came from Bollywood movies. The only reason why we don't call it Bollywood anymore is because Slumdog Millionaire blew up, and everyone wanted Jai Ho, and they're like, "Can you do Jai Ho and do the Bollywood dancing?" Because it came from a Bollywood movie, but we called it filmy. Like that, specifically Indo-Caribbeans called it filmy for as long as they could. And that you didn't need a background in dance to perform it. So I would say filmy from an Indo-Caribbean lens is style. It also separates the Nagara and the Indo-Udhal, and so that's...
Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. Can you repeat that? I heard up until you said filmy as a style, and then it kind of broke in and out.
Oh yeah, filmy does, like, definitely our style of filmy from the, again, the Indo-Caribbean lens is one, mostly performed by women, but two, it pulls on Nagara and Indo-Udhal and chutney, and actually we should probably get into the chutney dancing too, right? Chutney, chutney, I think low-key is the reason why classical ended up in Guyana and eventually to Trinidad as well, actually. So chutney was performed to chutney music. Today, it's not really performed to just chutney music. Like there's chutney to soca music, who use soca music, or they use styles of hip hop in their dance forms, right? It is performed by women. The style of dance. I'm not saying like, oh, we're listening to chutney music and we're dancing. No, this is like the performance aspect of it. And its precursor was something called Jetke Ki Nach. And kind of how we were deemed Nach girls. And a lot of it, like it led to the subcons to think, oh, whoa, these people are like, how did they move like that? That is a lot. And this is something that we deal with. The jungly, the gypsy, these slurs that are used. But chutney is like, that is our thing, and that is our mode of like, even the wine, when you think about how the emotion tied to the wine, like when I'm whining on someone that is same gender, non-gender, it doesn't mean that I want to do it. It just means that I love you. It really means like, it's, you know, whining so emotional, you know. It is. But because of that chutney dancing, what happened was that the Indian government ended up sending dancers to Indian classical dancers into Guyana.
Guyana, okay.
My apologies. Yeah, to Guyana, to fix that.
Wow, that is so interesting. Like this idea that they felt so threatened by like the Indo-Caribbean form of dancing that they sent people to fix it, to like keep you up to the subcon.
To do that. And I think also they were like, I don't want that associated with us. Like, let's send some classical dancers over to Guyana. And some of these dancers, like I can touch on them later. They ended up going to Trinidad as well to teach classical dancing. Yeah, that they were teaching that to introduce us culture.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
There is that
very, very linked to the whole colonial legacy, or even today when we think of South Asian as, you know, prestigious, and then Indo-Caribbean framed as the, you know, the, like you said, the jungly, the sexualized, the exotic, right?
Yeah. So, but actually the program did really well in Guyana. So they didn't just bring dance, they brought music as well. So Northern Indian music especially, that is what they brought in, because they did bring in Kathak dancers. The Pawars was that first family to bring that over. And then it did so well that they took out and put them into Kathak dancer. His wife was Priya. Okay, so she class as a result to give people more of an opportunity to learn classical styles of dance. My mom was one of those people, and everybody dropped out because it was so hard. I actually have a picture of those dancers together with. So I'm like, oh, this is like a bit of history here.
Yeah, of course.
They ended up moving on to Trinidad. So I don't know if there's any Trinidadians that know who the Pawars are, but they were a Kathak and Odissi couple.
Sorry, you're chopping. Can you repeat that last bit that you just said? It's just kind of chopping in and out.
From where?
Right after you said if there's any Trini people who know who the
Pawars.
Yeah.
Pawars are, you might that they were like pretty elemental to this and instrumental, because apparently we were so good at classical dancing, they were not expecting that the Pawars were like, we need to give these people scholarships and send them to India. So I believe my aunt was one of those people. My mom was one of those people. Mostly men took those scholarships.
Okay.
Famous person who took one of those scholarships to India was Mumtaz Ali. I think he knows who Mumtaz is, but he took that scholarship. Philip McClinton, really famous Kathak dancer, and I think he wasn't the only. He was I think an African Guyanese dancer, and he excelled at it. Phenomenal. Doing. So
yeah, I know Mumtaz Ali is really famous, and I don't know if anybody else from this who was on here has heard of him. But he is like this really famous dancer that I think when I was younger, we used to go to shows to watch him as well.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at one of the comments right here really quickly. I think somebody was also messaging saying that there's also Rajhar, which is a semi-classical dance connected to Tan Sangeet. And we would also have Lodowa Kinach, which is where a male performer would be in drag and perform.
We did
Cool.
talk.
Cool, cool, cool.
There was always a drag component to these. In the, so you were still a male playing the female character. Sort of dancing that was associated with blessings that I don't think is done anymore. It's usually like almost style, where they would come when the baby was born and perform a dance, which was a more, at least not people.
You're breaking in a little bit. What was that style of dance called? I know you said that it's performed when a baby comes.
Fortunately, I don't know the name of it, but
okay.
The person who commented, that might be what it is called.
Okay, great. Okay, I mean, that's pretty incredible. Like, I didn't even know that Tassa, you know, it's nagara dance. So you're saying Tassa dancing is nagara dancing with the Tassa beat. So it's an actual form of dancing. But
yeah.
So that's changed a little bit, though, because I know you told me a little bit that originally Tassa dance had certain footwork, like there was a certain choreography almost. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
It's not much I can tell as much as I can do it. So I need to like.
Okay. okay.
But yeah, especially those older schools, like what happened to Janet Naipal's school? Like she's Trinidadian. I think she also did a style similar to that where she was using nagara dance, traditional nagara dance. Geetika Dance Company, Toronto Dance Company. Those were schools that at least every year they would be part of like the Jihaji Indian independence, where they would have those demonstrations, as well as like maybe a little drama dedicated to the female Jihaji experience. Okay, great. Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you though. You were talking about the different. I think there are 6 dance forms. I think you kind of talked about 3 so far. You talked about filmy. You talked about nagar.
Nagara, chutney, filmy, class.
Yes.
And my favorite, because
wait, what's it called? You broke out.
Filmy classical, which I think is so bad.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about what filmy classical is.
I think if you were like not here for like Indian colonialism, like that type of colonialism where they're like, oh, you guys need culture, let me fix that. I think filmy classical is total disruption to that system.
Okay.
Makes me so happy. So filmy classical has nothing to do with classical dancing. It is dancers who were actors and who were classically trained, like Vijanti Mala, Asha Parikh, Wahida Rahman, Padmini. These are trained classical dancers and they became actresses. And so they would do their dances, like think even like Mughal Azam, right? Like you would think Kathak dancing right away, right? So you're watching this. I'm an Indo-Caribbean woman. I'm watching this movie and I'm like, I can dance to this. Watch me. And she does it. And I think that is totally badass that we're just like, excuse me, like classical what? Like I'm gonna dance because I can do it. Okay, so you can try and stop me. So that I think it's beautiful, and it involves the like styles of nagara dance, and it totally brings in chutney dance to it. Which if you're a classical dancer watching it, you'd be like, what? Hold on. But filmy classical is its own thing, and you don't need to be a dancer to do filmy classical.
Okay.
You just need the music. Put on the music and dance. Go on a stage and dance.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I did have some names I wanted to drop for you guys to Google and look up. There's some amazing stories behind some of these dancers. Most of these are from my list are Chinese, with the exception of Janet Naipal. She is Trinidadian. But to drop on you guys, originator of chutney dance was a woman named Pita Pyari. So my mom just tried to call me.
No way.
Pita Pyari, and she's the first recorded chutney dancer.
Okay.
This was in the 1930s when
Oh, wow.
women weren't allowed to dance publicly back then. It's not that they weren't allowed; it was that it was not encouraged.
Yeah.
Women dance publicly. So Pita Pyari, I believe she died in 2017 or
Okay.
died recently, but without her there would be no chutney dance. But there was definitely this divide between her and other dancers because she wasn't the wind-up chutney dancer, what we call wind-up chutney dancer. Like that, she was clean, so she was a little more okay with this with the public. But then comes my girl. I love the story. Please, guys, Google her. She's not alive anymore, but her name is Dolly Baksh. With her, I don't think we would have chutney dance the way that we see it right now. We wouldn't have it without her.
Okay.
So Dolly Baksh was a self-taught chutney dancer, and I credit her with the freelance chutney schools that, especially that we have here in Toronto. We have a lot of freelance chutney schools, and I credit it to her. She was like people would say she had no bone. Like,
okay.
Yeah, like her waist,
like her waist is loose. Yeah.
no bone. But and this is important to me because I'm in the circus, so she's able to incorporate acro into chutney dancing, which means that's a lot to me. To know. She, as a result, was like, she received a lot of backlash.
Okay.
She danced. Many South Asians called her a gypsy dancer. They called her a belly dancer. These are all inaccurate. So I think went to Trinidad, learned how to do some more styles of dancing, came back.
And so Dolly Baksh is originally from Guyana.
Yeah,
and she was the first one to kind of do this chutney dance in the way that we see it today.
I'm
Okay.
not again for the Trinidadians, but Dolly Baksh was the one that did it for the Guyanese people.
Okay.
So unfortunately, the sad part about it, quickly as she became a very famous dancer, she died. She was, trigger warning, guys, she was murdered and she was raped, and people posthumously slut because she was a dancer. And you can hear it already. You can hear some old man saying, "See what happened when you do that." So there was an unfortunate ending to but she was a pioneer. She really, her and Pita Pyari, Mumtaz Ali. I see some people sounding off about Janet Naipal. Ava Ali was like one of the biggest self-taught filmy classical dancers, and I think people were like shook because she was Muslim and she was doing it. As well, I'm gonna just drop my mom's name up in here, Geetika Leo. You know, I wouldn't have this knowledge without her. And yeah, those are some of the names I can think of right now. I'd love to see if you guys had David Kachetram, obviously my aunt. So yeah.
That's incredible. So I mean, like just kind of learning about these six forms of dancing, filmy, classical, chutney, nagara, all of them. What impact do you think dance has had, or like, yeah, what impact has it had in kind of the identity of Indo-Caribbean women? Because you talk about that a lot. Like, what are the impacts with Indo-Caribbean women and these forms of dancing?
Well, it depends on like, I think it depends on where in the Caribbean you're from as well. I think it also depends on what style you ended up following and how you ended up where you are. Like for me personally, where would I be as a dancer? Like, how has it impacted me? I think researching it has allowed me to be more free with my sexuality as a dancer, because it was where I started teaching chutney dance because I was so afraid of people, and I was getting constant complaints about like, you Coolie people are objectifying children, which can be cute. I think I was trying to talk to my cousin about this actually the other day, and I was just like, what do you think about this? Like, what do you think about me teaching children how to do chutney dance? And she was just like, a girl has every right to learn chutney dance. It's for a watch that I take a problem with. And absolutely. And that's, you know, there's that. For me, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to start incorporating this back, start incorporating, especially Nagara. At the performance I did with Tifa Wine and 3 of my other students, that was our dance style. I mean, purposely wore ramals on our head. We purposely dressed sexually. Like we wore these little golden bras and like these Indian outfits, but we kept it open, and we're just like, this is who we are. This is our bodies. Like this is like, these bodies are the results of these experiences. We got to validate it, and we got to bring it back, right? We can't just forget it. Like if I have it, I should be able to share it.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think there's so much that comes out of dance. Like even the way that dance has kind of taken up and continues to take up. Like we're still sending our kids to dance schools, right? Years after learning, like originally, like that tradition has kind of been practiced for many, many years. So it's interesting to see the way it kind of takes up space, even in the diaspora, like even in the Canadian context, the way that this has kind of been a way that we link to our culture. Sending the kids to dance school, like harmonium classes, those kinds of things, right? As a way that we retain culture and kind of stay connected with culture. Tell me a little bit about where you see the future of dance in the diaspora context.
I think it's going to, I think like just how chutney dance has changed, and it's incorporating like hip hop and soca and dance hall into the dance, even though it is chutney dance and it was originally done to chutney music. It's going to keep on changing. I think that every time, you know, music changes, we're going to change with it. I mean, we changed chutney music. What are we having now? Oh my God, Daryl, back me up. Chatak Matak music is coming back, you know.
Yeah.
We're going to change with it too. We're going to come up, and you know, as these dancers are also diversifying their repertoire and diversifying how they train, it's going to affect the way that they teach these students, right? For me, it's like the acro background, the ballet background. You can see it in my students, and so each school is going to have their own thing that's going. So I think I have in the future like someone who went to Tirana and went to Footsteps, and then that perfect unison of just like classical dance and like chutney dance happening, and then they can film me classical real thing, right?
Of course. Thank you. I know that we've had like a lot, we've just like kind of named 6 really in-depth, complex forms of dance, and I don't think anybody will grasp the full context of all these dances. So what we will do, I think, after, I know people have been asking for names, like the names of Dali Box, like how to spell it. Maybe one of the things we can do after is just type up those names of those dance forms. That way people can, and post it on the Lotus page. That way people can search them afterwards, get a sense of what those are. I wanted to touch on something really quick. I don't remember if it was us having this conversation about the Coolie song. Was it us that were? Okay, so I was having this conversation with somebody about the song Coolie. It might have been on one of these Lotus Lives, and how that song was kind of like a really interesting, I think it might have been Tifa Wine, an interesting song because it was the first time that people were kind of taking pride in dancing like a Coolie.
Yeah, the Coolie.
Yeah.
And it was like the little hand with the bounce, and yeah, that's like a really good, to me, that's like, it's not quite a Nagara move, but yes, it has roots in Nagara. And so even around and see different chutney schools, I kind of like, I get a little bit taken back and a little bit emotional thinking like these moves came from somewhere. And from women. And they came from women who were like, we're not allowed to do anything but watch me, right? Watch me take up space.
Yeah. Amazing. So how does that kind of influence your work now as somebody who not only learned these dance forms, but now teaches them, right? Like knowing that these dances came from women, these dances are legacies. They're not, you know, just kind of like a thing you do with your body. It's like there's stories behind them, right?
I find that the legacy of being an Indo-Caribbean woman interferes heavily with being a classical dancer. There is a lot of separation. An Indo-Caribbean woman that you don't get, if I was a white person learning how to do Kathak dance, wouldn't be a problem. They get more access, and it's completely unfair because they think that we're less than for whatever reason. And I've experienced that, and I continue to experience it as a performer, even, right? As soon as someone finds out that my is run by Indo-Guyanese people, they're like, we don't want you to dance because we don't think you have what it takes. You can't dance classy, you can't despite being able to show repertoire simply because I'm Indo-Caribbean, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of hurdles to cross. I find that even as a classical dancer, that you grow up as a classical dancer and you train, because the whole thing about being a classical dancer is that you are actually not really supposed to stop training. So taking it for like 2-3 years, that doesn't make you a classical dancer. Classical dancing is lifelong. And it's not accessible to the West Indian community. So my thing is making it accessible and making it a safe space for Indo-Caribbean people. But also, I was talking to one of my students, and her mom is Malaysian, and she's saying there's a reason why I don't go to South Asian schools, because they don't treat people outside in the diaspora, like Malaysians. They don't make space for us. So I will never go to a South Asian school. I prefer to come to you guys where you'll make space for my daughter and she won't feel rejected. So it's weird to think that like they also have that problem too. And there is this weird thing that classical myself included, this classical Indian mindset that you get put into once you're learning dance, that all the styles are dirty. So I was training, I have been training as an Odissi dancer for, it doesn't matter how long, you'll know how old I am if I tell you. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, that is a lot, and I think that's dirty. And if you have to disrupt that type of thinking as a classical dancer, as an Indo-Caribbean dancer, you cannot let that thinking enter society. Hell no. Mm-hmm. I'm totally part of that too, because I've been looking at, like, I can look at a chutney school and be like, this isn't what I was taught, but that's not my thinking. That's not, grooming me to think that way about my own people, right? So let's get that classism out of it, that casteism. No, keep it away from culture. Spread the right?
Yeah, I think that's been such a common theme throughout these 3 series that we've done on like chutney music, on the LGBTQ plus experience, and now on dance, this theme of kind of, and I think Tipa Wine said this in our last session, the idea that the Indo-Caribbean experience begins as we leave the South Asian experience. So like our identity being formed as we separate or as we kind of say goodbye to the South Asians. And we're seeing that with the way, chutney dancing is formed, chutney music is being created, and the way our identities are being formed. And I think that it's really interesting to hear that theme continues even in dance, because I know a lot of the dances that you're talking about, they're still taught in South Asian communities as well, correct?
Oh, yeah, it's like it never stopped. I mean, there was a moment where everything was banned by the British, but like, so
yeah,
we came back. But, even for us, like we have a lot of work to dismantle within ourselves. There's so much like sexism, homophobia, Islamophobia. There's a lot of Islamophobia in our culture as well, right?
Yeah.
We gotta deal with this. Right?
Yeah.
And I think when we think of someone like Ava Ali, who is a Muslim dancer, and she's not supposed to be dancing, she's disrupting this entire system. And it's not an Indian woman doing this. It is a woman from Guyana or a woman from Trinidad, and they're taking the lead, and they're like, literally watch me get up on this stage and show you.
That's incredible. I don't know, we haven't talked about this, but just kind of like just hearing you speak, I'm wondering if you're seeing any, because I know there was one Bollywood movie that they sang the song, I think Kaise Baniyan. I think
so like the holy songs and stuff, right?
I don't know if it was a holy song. It was like Salman Khan. But I'm wondering if you, as somebody who's trained in dance and can pick up these things, has seen any kind of South Asians taking the Indo-Caribbean dances and incorporating them.
I'd be in trouble.
No, we don't. I mean, like, are you seeing that? Are you seeing that South Asians are now taking parts of Indo-Caribbean dances? Like, is that something that's happening, or are they still like, no, like, we? Sorry, I'm not trying to get, no, yes. Okay, I'm taking that as a yes. So that is something that you're saying.
You want, and honestly, it is a discussion we need to have. The truth is, like Black culture, and it's especially because of our proximity to Black culture, we often get kicked out completely. So like fine, we know that it has a Central African background, right? And because of our proximity and because of Nagara dance, they do look similar. And because of the message we're also trying to teach through Nagara in these feminist spaces, it is so, I mean, we've seen this when people go to Trinidad and they're not Trinidadian and they're like, Daisies are here. And it's like, what? So what, we haven't been here? So, okay, cool. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. But when you look at Bollywood dance now, there is more hip hop influence. There is definitely a Caribbean influence, and they are not giving us the credit for it. They're definitely selling it as something as cool, right? Which is completely unfair. Again, this is why I'm saying we get erased from completely. And because, like, our dance styles, Nagara, Chetney, Filmy, these are our dance styles. And it's like, to see people who have been shitting on us for so damn long, and they're out here like, I'm a whining queen. And it's kidding me. Like, how about hire some like West Indian dancers to show us how it's done?
Yeah.
Right? Rather than just like not letting us speak at all. I am not. Whoever said I'm naming me mom, that's my curse.
I think, yeah, I like that you called it just like erasing our culture, because I think that like that's what a part of it is. It's just kind of like, I think there's this idea that Indo-Caribbeans have never existed for people on the subcontinent. And now, even though we're taking parts of their identity and culture, they still don't exist because we're taking it but not giving credit where it's due.
Like they're like, well, we can do it better than you, so you guys can just die. Like, stop talking. Just here, we're gonna do a better job at being Indo-Caribbean than you without the trauma. And it's like, no. The trauma's part of it. Okay, go on the fields then. Go on the fields.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to share about like your experience of dancing? I think we're gonna open it up for questions too. I think there's a couple in there that I'll go through and pick out. But do you have anything else that you wanted to? I know we have about like 20 minutes left. Do you have anything you wanted to share in terms of questions or just comments of things you've learned?
No, I would not. Like, let's not talk about me. Let's answer some questions and.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to go through here a little bit. So guys, if you guys have any questions about dance, I don't know what's happening with my phone right now, but okay, back to normal. If you guys have any questions about the 6 forms of dance that we've talked about, or any questions that you'd like to raise now around dance, its relation to culture, please pop them in there. I've never heard them in Guyana or in Trinidad. I'm gonna have to educate them on colonialism. Let's see. I'm seeing some on South Asians don't understand our culture. Other than we left India, we don't speak their language. Yes, they are very confused by us, I think. Thank you, Daryl, for putting the movie that I was talking about. It's called Dabang. That's the movie where Salman Khan starts singing Kaise Bani and like this. I don't know even how that happened, but it did happen. Okay, so we have one question. There was a whole discussion about us not having a culture. And this is something that I think happened on Twitter recently. What do you think about that coming from the dance perspective? So when we're talking about dance and Indo-Caribbeans naming a culture, and just to provide some framework, guys, there was a conversation on Twitter earlier this month about somebody had framed a conversation about Indo-Caribbeans not having an identity. And kind of almost feeling bad for us because we don't have an identity. So based on the dance perspective, can you speak to this?
Oh, well, we fall under the same category because they don't think that listen, everyone thinks we're an actual dance form. Similar, like, to put it in perspective for anyone who isn't Indo-Caribbean, Bollywood isn't considered a dance form. It's considered it's considered a workshop thing to do where someone's like, oh, I did it. But it's not really like, I do every style of dance, like jazz, ballet, but that's not every style of dance. You don't know how to do Nagara dance. You don't know why we have Nagara dance. Now you guys know why we have Nagara dance and where it came from. these are actual styles of dance that are related to several different forms of dance, like Kalbelia, Bhavai, Viraha. Like these didn't come up out of nowhere. But then at the same time, there is so much to being the creators of something new, like filmy dance from the Indo-Caribbean perspective. It came from the woman's imagination, the Indo imagination, and she should be given credit thus. So that's
powerful.
I'm like culture. What are you talking about? No culture. All of culture, all of fighting for our rights, all this existing and taking up space. Like we have every right to eat up that space.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
like, what are we just walking around like blank slates? I don't understand. Like, understand. like blank slates. Like that's what that person said, and that like we were shitty people for it.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so we have a question about reading materials. Are there any reading materials that kind of touch on these different dance forms?
If you look up Pita Pyari, there are a few articles about her, as well as Dali Baksh, but just be careful because they are all written from a colonial perspective, so you have to deal with that. If you want reading material on classical, because I feel like a lot of us say we're classical dancers and aren't, so if you want reading material on that, there is a lot. Paramita Kar, PhD at York University, that's my girl. She has been writing some stuff at York University, so type her in as well. She is not Guyanese, but she is a damn good ally for West Indians who are pursuing the classical route. There is, if you want to do Odissi dancing, there are tons of textbooks on that because it is related to the temples and temple dancing. There's lots written on Bharatanatyam and there's 8 styles, so choose your style. Choose one that feels important to you. More dramatic ones, more drama-based ones. Look at those. So type in like 8. Unfortunately, they have all the information. We do not. So that's a part. And so ours is translated verbally. It's like, for me, it was literally from mother to daughter. That's the only reason why. And same for some of you guys who are commenting right now. You're like, I know about this because I saw this, right? It's all experience. But we do need to, we record this. We do need to have some people going into the fields and doing their ethnographies. I mean, that's what I tried to do, but more on that another time. So
amazing. Okay, so we have one. Oh my God, seriously, Bengal problems. Okay, we have a question about. Do you feel South Asians don't accept us? Are younger generations moving towards more Caribbean music like chutney or soca?
Y'all asking the hard questions. Struggle with that because I am a classical dancer, which does root me into the subcontinent. And as I was saying, you know, being a classical dancer kind of puts me in like this really stank ivory tower that I don't want to be part of. Especially now that I'm learning why classical dance came to as like a result of people thinking that we were beastly and too sexy and just they thought we were nautch girls. So it puts me in the perspective of like, I don't want to identify as this. I don't. Unfortunately, the style that I do, Odissi, is going through a similar thing that Nagara is going through, where it's disappearing. So there's that problem. There's like a lot happening here, but in terms of like identifying as South Asian,
yeah, I think though, like
that's a loaded question.
it is. It might be a whole live stream on its own. I think just like hearing you saying, like, I think it's very important that we as Indo-Caribbean take up spaces on those very stank ivory towers, though, right? Because I think for a long time, like, as we've talked about continuously, this, you know, rejection from South Asians, but like being able to be in those spaces and say, hey, I can do this dance, and honestly, I could probably do it better than a lot. You know,
that was
like
I think that was the tipping point, especially when we talk about the Powars and how they wrote back to the government saying these people can dance. Like we thought they were hopeless, but they dance, like they can do it really well, and we need to send them over. And like we like whoa.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot to eating up that. I love that eat that space as
Yes.
a person. So if you're gonna do classical, jump in and eat that space. It is abusive. It is an abusive environment. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, there's that. The moment you let on that you're remotely Caribbean, that's when the problems start, right?
Okay, good to know. So there's a lot of barriers in those spaces.
Oh, right.
We're thankful that we have people like you that have kind of taken up those spaces and are now kind of teaching and doing those things. I wanted to touch a little bit about some of the social artifacts that you mentioned. So, just because like I know a lot of us aren't familiar with these words, or some of us may not be familiar with these words. So you talked about gungaroos, which I love gungaroos. I wear them every day, but my bangles make enough noise as it is. Pile, and I think you talked about a room, the room,
The remote.
rumar, rumal. Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about those three items and what they are, what they mean?
Yeah, there's a difference between pile, gungaroo, and ramal is that any of you have a nanny or an auntie that tie the ting fleshy head and go to puja, and there's a white one for the puja, there's a madrasi one, uh, and so it was like this, it's similar to a do-rag, but a good way to show you guys that if you look at any of the work that I did with Tifa Wine, we did me and the three other dancers all wore ramals. However, they're not authentic ramals because the material wasn't authentic. We took a mesh material and we wrapped it in the traditional way.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just our way of taking that back, because whenever we wore it, the first thing I said when I wore my ramal at that performance was like, it was a white performance. It was so many white performers, and I'm looking around and I'm like holding Ryan's hand and I'm like, if someone says the word gypsy, it's going down, because they're looking at us and they're saying gypsy. You know that they're thinking of that, and that's a really disgusting slur, right? It's used against us. So I'm like, the moment someone says, why are you wearing a do-rag, without actually understanding what we do, like, we weren't appropriating. We were trying to, be our grandmas. We're trying to represent her, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I know that my nana always talked about like his grandma wearing a rumal. And I remember being like, wait, can you describe it for me? And he was like, and I was like, is it a bandana? Like, I'm confused. So it's great that we're kind of having these discussions, because when I learned about it, I was like, oh, yeah, like I kind of remember my grandma wearing that to pick me up from school, but I didn't know it had a name to it. Like, I just thought it was something she wore, and I would try to like dip as she picked me up because I was like, Grandma, what?
Yeah.
But now, we're kind of reclaiming those kinds of things. The gungaroo, the gungaroo and the pile, what are those?
So gungaroo are typically used by classical performers, and then like some filthy dancers, but it's a classical thing. There's different styles of gungaroos depending on what style of dance you're doing. Like, wouldn't use Kathak style bells for Odissi dancing. That's why. Why would you do that? And then piles have their own interesting history period, right? Because it's traditional jewelry. It is, again, that transmigratory jewelry, and it's just like the little anklet, and they can be super thick, or they can be the thin ones with the little coins on them.
Okay.
You can wear them to dance. You can wear them to walk. Like, you don't need like every wear a pile. Like, it is part of our dress, or our ancestral dress for. But gungaroos specifically for classical. But I have seen chutney dancers wear gungaroos. It's just that that's not a thing traditionally. However, we can argue that it is now because we're doing it.
Mm-hmm, of course.
For us, it would probably be like how I was saying in the udol, they would sew the bell onto the pants. Like, if we started doing that.
Yeah, of course. Well, maybe we can start. We can put it out there in the universe and see what happens, right?
Your bells onto your pants.
All right, cool. Well, let me see. I think there was one more question for you here, but again, guys, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them. So we have one. Is the dance style Barakiam something Indo-Caribbean people learn and perform?
That's a weird question, because a Caribbean person can do any style of dance and perform it as long as they're training. But is one of those 8 styles of classical dance. For Caribbean culture, there would be 4 of the 8 that are really popular. And Bharatanatyam, have taken off, but Odissi is also one of our styles that like have that, like literally they sent that to Guyana, right? And it did go to Trinidad. And Kuchipudi would be the fourth one. No one really does. I don't know a single Coolie person at the Coolie. I would love to meet you if you did. I need to know you actually. So there's so many different styles, and there's more than just the. We can argue more than just the 8 as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think with Daryl's comment on the first kind of one, again with this remixing that has kind of taken place and continues to take place in the Caribbean, now in the diaspora, I think more will come to form. We'll learn about more as, you know, different types of music starts to influence our dancing as well.
Yeah, and then I guess I would just say that the thing about being a classical dancer is just be careful of the ivory tower, man. Like, don't be part of that. Don't be part of the. Don't do it. You are not colonizer. Get out of the ivory tower.
Yeah, once you're there, make space for other people.
Look down at any kind of West Indian dancer because she does chutney. No, that is your history, and it is destructive, and it is valid. So don't just be up here like, I've been doing Bharatanatyam for 20 something years. No, this isn't really dancing. It is dancing. It is dancing. Learn it. Learn it.
Mm-hmm.
Be a good and be a chutney dancer. Be a good chutney dancer.
Of course, of course. Okay, amazing. I think that's all that I have. If there's any other questions, feel free to drop them. Do you have any closing words?
Are you guys doing this to me today? I don't really have any closing words. I just really big fan of knowledge and education. So when it comes to these styles of dance, I know there's no literature really available except for the classical dances, which again, as I discussed, is because of these colonial spaces and these neo-colonial spaces. But I would say, guys, go support a chutney school. Make sure they know what they're talking about, though, because like we need to share this knowledge. We need to share this knowledge. So it's kind of sad when we don't have the knowledge behind what we're doing. And like share it with your sisters. Share it with your sisters. Don't be like, well, you don't know about it.
Yeah.
Just be like, my sis, I love you. I love you.
Yeah.
I love you. I love what you're doing. And you are doing so much for you don't even notice it. Let me teach you some more about like where it came from. Do you not know it? That's fine. That's fine. Look, I'm here to tell you.
Yeah, and that's how this conversation came about. I think you posted something and I was like, what? Like, there's a choreography for talent or something like that. And like, you literally just taught me. And I think that's what is really important. I think especially for Indo-Caribbean women who are often taught to pull each other down, that like there's so much space for us to support each other and to build each other up. And once you're in that ivory tower, pull me up in there too so we can break it down later, right? Like, that's, I think, very important.
Don't me in this ivory tower. We gotta knock it down.
Exactly. So thank you so much for sharing. Pardon?
I'm not.
No, but we're proud of you for taking up that space. So thank you so much for sharing all of this knowledge with us. I know it's so important because, like you said, your mom and I think your family is kind of one of the only people left that kind of are teaching these types of styles of dance. And, you know, it's really great to hear a little bit about them. Thank you, everybody, for kind of joining us. We loved all your comments throughout, disrupting it. All of these beautiful comments. As you guys may know, this is the last of our Lotus sessions for now. But if you guys have any topics you want us to discuss, slide into our DMs and tell us what those topics are. And we will be able to try to find some speakers that can kind of talk on those. So thank you so much. I think that's it for now. Yeah.
No problem, guys. I mean, reach out if you need any more information. I think it'd be like worthwhile, like doing one for each style of dance. So.
Yeah,
this is history, and if I don't know about it, where does it go? So question yourselves now, guys. What are you going to do with this information?
Yeah. And you can even give us demonstrations at that point too, right?
Oh, well, if we could get like a space or a stage, yeah. For something like this, I don't think we should be like charging people. Like, I think we need everybody on board to know about who they are and take these moves and be like, it is ours. This is mine. Like, I need to feel the soul of my ancestors. I need to honor them, right? Because I literally understanding right now,
Mhm.
regardless of where they are in the diaspora, right? The West Indian diaspora.
Of course. And we got some people who have signed up already. So just in the comments, you got some people. So once this is all over, maybe, you know, we can find a space to kind of do that, to learn about these different forms and just kind of practice them and see where it leads us and spread the knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I see Angeli commenting. Angeli is actually one of those people that does know the traditional Nagara dance. Just
Amazing.
you guys start seeing Shivangeli Arts in the comment, give her a follow. Knows the knowledge.
Okay, amazing. Okay, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Premika, for kind of taking us through this conversation.
Oh,
And we will keep in the loop. Feel free to tell us about your ideas and then we'll move forward from there. Okay, bye.
guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.